Petitclerc. En débat.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Honorable.
Thank you very much. Honorable Senators, I rise today with great emotion to speak to Bill C-81, a bill which has been called historic on several occasions, and which gives us hope for a barrier-free Canada for people with a disability. I'd like to warmly thank the sponsor of this bill, Senator Munson, for his extremely hard work on this file and for his very eloquent speech. He carried out this work with a big heart and with deep respect for people living with a disability.
Minister Carla Qualtrough, a former fellow Paralympian who has worked so hard on this. In 1992, the year the Disability Act became law in the USA, we were both competing in Barcelona. And I remember well the hope that this bill was bringing to the world for persons with disability. And yes, it took time, but finally we have our bill, the Barrier-Free Act, and so it is a historic moment. And it's fair to say that your legacy, Minister Qualtrough, goes way beyond the medal you gave this country. En lieu de discours aujourd'hui, j'aimerais bien simplement vous raconter trois histoires.
Instead of a speech today, I would simply like to tell you three stories which, in my opinion, clearly illustrate the importance not only of this bill, but also of building a barrier-free Canada.
This was 1988, my first year in college, so 5 years after becoming paraplegic. This was also the year that I saw the movie Wings of Desire from Wim Wenders. And so at 17, I decided that learning German was a very high priority. So I took the German class, but there was a small problem. There were 4 or 5 steps to get to that class at the end of a corridor corner. The Cégep did great. They had a ramp. But I have to tell you, the ramp was so short and so steep, it was a disaster waiting to happen. I had 2 options. I could ask for friends to push me up the ramp, or I could take a deep breath, roll like my life depended on it, and hope to make it to the top. I was young, I was trying to fit in, and so I refused to ask for help. But I was determined. And so, to go unnoticed, I would get to the class early and push up that ramp without nobody watching me, and try to make it up the ramp, sometimes after 3 or 4 attempts. So now, after a while, my ego, or survival instinct, got the better out of me, and I dropped off the class. I abandoned it. Now, I think we can all agree that me not speaking German is not a human tragedy, but it's easy to imagine, and that's my point, that situations like this happened and still happens to thousands of persons with disabilities, with much serious impact to their lives, the pursuit of their goals, the contribution they wish to bring to this country, and their basic rights to accessibility. So, in my humble opinion, without first removing physical, architectural, communication barriers, we can't talk about an accessible Canada. Avec le projet de loi C-81, non seulement on tente.
With Bill C-81, we're trying not only to remove barriers, but also to create precise, definite, and concrete standards so that accessibility may become a reality. And even more importantly, in my opinion, this bill clearly establishes that at every stage, people with a disability will be part of the process.
That in the bill, the commitment to respect the nothing about us without us is, in my opinion, crucial. No matter the good intentions, persons with disability have the lived experience and expertise to know what works, what should be done, and this bill puts them, as it should, at the center of the process, and this alone gives me hope. But barrier-free is more than building good ramps, obviously. In fact, I would dare to say that this is the easy part. Changing attitude is what really matters. So let me tell you another story. My friend Sherry Blowett is a US Paralympic racer and a brilliant individual. When she retired from track, she decided she wanted to study medicine, and so she did. She's a strong, passionate woman, and in part because of the Disability Act in the US, she faced minimum architectural barriers to achieve her goal. Access was fine, medical equipment was slightly adjusted, and so she became Dr. Blowett. But the barrier she did not expect was patients were thrown off by her being a doctor in a wheelchair. She had all kinds of reactions. Let me quote my favorite from the New York Times article titled, and I quote, "I use a wheelchair and yes, I'm your doctor." And here it goes. And again, I'm quoting from the article. And this is Sherry being quoted, Sherry Blowett. "Although my badge reading Dr. Blowett and stethoscope were clearly visible, the man said, 'You look like you're doing pretty well. When are you going to be discharged?'" Clearly, my wheelchair was the only thing he saw, and moreover, he equated my wheelchair with illness rather than empowerment. End of quote. I find this example so revealing, and I know for a fact that it happened to her not only one time, being taken for a patient, even wearing the badge, the white clothes, and a stethoscope. So attitude is everything, and unless we can change attitude, perception, behaviors, we cannot speak of a barrier-free Canada. Est-ce que ce projet de loi saura être un outil puissant pour aider?
Will this bill be a powerful tool to help change attitudes towards people with a disability? It aims to do so, and I certainly hope it will. I would like to end by telling you about my cousin's son, the amazing little Milan.
He was born with cerebral palsy, and he is a gutsy, fearless, joyful little boy. He uses 2 canes to walk, to play, to run. And he would really want me to mention that he is the up-and-coming sledge hockey star on his team. Last year in my home, as I watched him play with my son, running around roughhousing, free of all fear and self-consciousness, it came clear to me that little Milan did not even think of himself as a person with a disability. And just as revealing, my little boy did not see him as a person with a disability. They were just 2 boys playing together. And that, dear colleague, should be what we aim for when it comes to barrier-free Canada. Alors maintenant, je ne suis pas naïve.
Now, I am not naive. I know only too well that this bill will not magically transform the lives of people with disabilities in Canada. It has limits in terms of what it can do, in terms of its scope, and in terms of the number of people with a disability who will benefit from it. There are some legitimate concerns that have been raised here and by various organizations, and that we will, of course, study at committee.
Allow me to be hopeful. Hopeful that Bill C-81 will set solid foundation, bring forward concrete, high standards of accessibility, and contribute to changing mentalities. Hopeful that it will create a strong momentum, and that this momentum will be embraced by provinces and territories, and that Canada will indeed gradually become barrier-free. And in the end, hopeful that little Milan will be able to grow up in a country where his disability will never stop him from achieving his craziest dreams. And that, dear colleague, in years to come, will be how we can really measure the success of this bill. Merci. Thank you.